Lovely. Okay, cool. So guidance note W2, been a bit of a labour of love that I've been through this summer, digesting the information. Most of it is entirely based on the information from the Health and Safety Executive and advice from the Health and Safety Executive. So all I've done is just made it a little bit more palatable, a little bit easier to navigate. And I've popped lots of links in there to avoid you having to do what I had to do over the summer, which is sort of go to various different places to obtain different pieces of information. I've also began to start thinking about the work for you a little bit. So using some of my lived experience and some of my knowledge and understanding on this topic of mental health and well-being. So let's just start with why I did this guidance note. So this particular guidance note, I wanted to do something tangible for you. I wanted to give people something that they could begin to do to start working on proactive well-being policies. And I thought starting with a risk assessment is something that we are all just so familiar with. I remember a time when risk assessments were few and far between. We did fit-ups without hard hats. We didn't have the code of conduct or anything like that. So I believe that safety has evolved hugely, and it's culturally just part of our everyday activities backstage. But well-being and the health side needs a little bit more work. So I'm not making this stuff up. This comes from fact, okay? So the Health and Safety Executive came up with the Working Minds campaign because the data and the statistics meant they had to push this area more. So we have data here. You don't have to remember any of this, by the way. There is nothing in this presentation that isn't in the guidance note, okay? So this particular information you will find in the appendix at the back of the guidance note. So 1.7 million workers suffered from a work-related illness, and of those, 800,000 cited stress, depression, or anxiety, the highest figures above other physical conditions. And the health and safety have cited that stress in the workplace and well-being issues are on the rise, and they're the biggest thing to worry about post-COVID. We also know that from our data as well. So we're very lucky to also have data from our well-being survey that was conducted in 2021. So this was gave us some COVID data as well. Our prevalence sits at around 40% of people identifying with a mental health condition. Most of those actually are pre-existing mental health conditions. So it's not that our industry creates mental health conditions, but actually we do attract an awful lot of people with pre-existing mental health conditions as well. So I won't go through all of the statistics, but in essence what this data is telling us is that it's time to start doing this work, okay? So you can't ignore the facts that are in front of us. We need to begin this body of work in the same way that we began to do the bodies of work around safety. We created the code of conduct. We now wear hard hats on fit-ups. Risk assessment is just everyday part and parcel of what we do. The facts are telling us that we need to begin this body of work, okay? 1 in 3 for bullying. This one here, a huge 98% of people. So the survey sample was 1,300 or 400 people, and 98% of them just don't think that anyone sees a difference between physical and mental health. And the data is quite alarming as well. I also just really wanted to highlight that I believe that if we do this work, we're going to start to address some of these key industry issues at the moment. So we have a staff retention issue at the moment, and we have a staff recruitment issue. Everybody is trying to recruit human beings. Everybody's trying to keep them from leaving to go somewhere else. I truly, sincerely believe that if you start this body of work and you change the culture in your workplace, you will be going 10 steps ahead of anybody else to retain your staff, but also for human beings to want to come and work for you, and for you not to be trying to find people. Our survey said that half were thinking about leaving their backstage career. You don't need that as a data sample. That's happened. We're struggling for staff. And half of our workforce surveyed were thinking of leaving, basically leaving their backstage careers, but we already know that. I just really wanted to highlight this again, because I do think sometimes that it's forgotten. This is actually in the Health and Safety at Work Act. It should be the duty of every employer to ensure, so far as reasonably practicable, the health and the welfare, the health and safety and welfare. So sometimes I think health and safety are two words that are like, they're like cheese and onion, aren't they? They go together, that we're just so familiar with health and safety. I actually didn't know the word welfare was written in the Health and Safety at Work Act, to be honest. And I just really wanted to highlight that. And I want to pose a question to you. Does your business strategy have as much focus on all three of those words equally? Do you have policies and procedures and strategy for safety? I believe you do. Yeah. Do you have as many for health? Do you have as many for welfare? So if we're looking at this strategically, we need to look at a three-pronged attack here. So my weighing scales here are just saying, if I took all of your policies and procedures for safety, would they balance with your health strategies and your welfare strategies as well? And again, if you like to look at this guidance note, this is going to help you to do that moving forward. I also just wanted to highlight that whenever we talk about well-being or mental health, they're like scary words that really freak employers out a little bit, I think, because there's no one size fits all solution, because I guess we're dealing with human beings, and every human being is subjective in that sense. If you have a slip, trip or a fall, then you can put something in place that stops that. I do understand that it's very, very difficult to begin to start looking at this work, but I just really wanted to highlight to you that it's really, people with mental health and well-being issues want to work. So please don't feel that, like as a bipolar patient, like I really enjoy my job and I love going to a meaningful employer and I really get something out of going to work. So it is actually positive for people with mental health and well-being to be going to work. The benefits for me as a bipolar patient are really, they give me a purpose, a sense of achievement, social contact, all of those different things. The benefits to you as an employer is that I'm happy and healthy, and I do productive things, and again, you retain me, and obviously a healthy working environment will mean that other people will want to come to you as well. I did also want to highlight as well that in 2017 there was this like government Thriving for Work thing, and they have a 10-year strategy for employers in all types of employment have good work, which contributes positively to their mental health and our society. I truly believe that if you work in entertainment, theatre, live events, entertainment, you do it because you love it. You must do you know what I mean? Because it can be quite stressful. And we all say that, don't we? We say, oh, we must love what we do because it's very stressful. Why does it have to be? Do you see what I mean? Why can't we work to change that? Why can't the narrative of that be difficult? Why can't we do it because we love it, but actually we're also working in a healthy, happy environment as well? And that's the culture that I'd like to change. So I actually went into a warehouse. I won't name drop who it was, but this particular warehouse manager was just amazing. And I was chatting to him about welfare in his workplace. And I can't take credit for this quote, but he says, I want my workers to come in to work and go home feeling no worse than when they came in. And it was just like a light bulb moment from this amazing warehouse manager who was in charge of health and safety. And I think that should be a motto that's put in every workplace. Stress is the adverse reaction that people have to excess pressure or other types of demand placed on them. And there is a clear distinction between pressure, which can create a buzz, but also, and be motivating, but it can become excessive as well. So it's about balancing it. And this is where I'm going to sit here and say, I understand that people's stress containers differ from person to person. So those kind of generic risk assessments can be quite difficult, because what I can retain as a stress factor might be different to a co-worker, for example. And so that might put you off beginning this body of work. But I'm going to try and explain to you how actually we can look at it more generically. I also just wanted to highlight that you aren't here to fix my problems or a human being's problems. You're just here to create an environment that doesn't make them worse, yeah, and doesn't contribute towards them. We can't solve every human being's issue, but we can create a generic, safe structure for people to go and work in. I think sometimes we get a little bit lost on that. Okay, so this is from the Working Minds campaign, signs of stress in teams. I thought this was quite an interesting thing to look at. Actually, this one's not in the guidance notes, so my apologies. You can have a copy of these slides if you would like a copy of the slides. So looking at signs of stress, particularly in teams, just because we don't work alone backstage or to create live events at all. Arguments, higher staff turnover. I'm hoping that some of these are not going to be news to you, because as someone that I get a lot of phone calls on this particular issue. I'm seeing a huge rise in phone calls from different people about different issues in team dynamics at the moment. So arguments, higher staff turnover, more complaints, more grievances, sickness, reports of stress, and decreased performance. You might see that people are taking more time off work. It might be that people just aren't arriving on time as they would be before. But these are some of the telltale signs of stress in the workplace. It's a dynamic shift in personality, I guess. Right, let's get into the crux of it. I've sold you, I'm trying to sell you on beginning this body of work, but let me spend a little bit of time talking to you about how to begin doing it, like tangibly looking at it. So the HSC have presented us with the 6 management standards: demands, control, support, relationships, role, and change. That gives us a very firm starting point to begin risk assessing those 6 areas. They believe that those 6 areas are key to analysing and looking at to reduce stress in the workplace. But that's fine. I've begun this work for you. So rather than just being stuck with a bubble that says demands, I've started to dissect that down. So demands are workload, work patterns, and work environments. This is the image the HSC give you, which is like a human being with a desk, and that is just not the image that would advocate what we do. But again, acting up into more senior roles, line managers, dealing with redundancies, obviously that was being short-staffed. These are these are all things that are just, I don't actually know of a team that I know of that is fully staffed at the moment. Everybody's looking for someone, aren't they? We do lots of out of hours working, weekends, overnight shifts. And again, just looking at people that have a responsibility for other human beings as well. So actually the greatest stress level sits at line management level. It's very stressful looking after human beings as a line manager, and quite often those people are forgotten. Control. So this is about how much a person has, how much a person's control is over the way that they do their work. Now, I'm not suggesting that people can just dictate to businesses and employers what they do, but there needs to be some sort of control in order to get that work-life balance sorted. So again, this is just staff not feeling that they're heard or that they have a voice. That is pointless talking because nobody ever listens to them. We work a lot of shifts, and it's about that lack of control of working patterns. So I spent the best part of 10 years working in a receiving house, and I don't believe that I ever felt that I could do a Pilates class or a pottery course or anything like that, because my working patterns just didn't allow for it at all. And of course now I would say that we shouldn't be allowing that for our staff. It shouldn't be that just because I'm a chief electrician of a venue that I can't go to a pottery class on a Wednesday evening every night. It should be okay that we can find a way to make that work for a human being. It's not unreasonable, is it? Again, communication can come into this. This is all to do with work-life balance and a lack of development opportunities as well. So sometimes when we're in the thick and fast of a really busy schedule backstage, the last thing we think about is development, but actually that's a really important thing for people's sense of achievement, and it also that staff retention as well. If they feel valued and they feel like they're progressing in some way, you're probably going to keep them in some way. So sorry for whizzing through them, but of course this is in the guidance note. I'm just trying to be as concise as possible. So you also have support, so encouragement, sponsorship and resources available to workers. So again, so I'll have to keep moving this thing out of the way. So the return to work structure is a little bit ropey, I think, in our industry, in terms of when people are off sick for a little while and then they return back to work again. Sometimes some of that like formal procedure gets a little lost. But it's really important that that's structured in some way, that maybe HR need to be involved a little bit. And you're having those meetings, those return to work meetings. Again, lots of training to line managers. Just because we're a chief electrician, I was really good at putting up gigs, putting up lights. And actually, I really needed a bit of support when I first became a chief electrician to manage human beings, because my skill set was lighting, not necessarily managing human beings. So have you elevated these technicians into these roles where they're now line managers, but you haven't actually given them any kind of encouragement, support or training in order to do this going forward? And that might be where they're struggling. So again, signposting for mental health and perhaps policies and procedures that you have in place for this. Lack of encouragement and praise. That's a really easy win, isn't it? And sometimes that's quite often forgotten, I think, because we're in a fast-paced environment backstage. And again, training and encouragement to be vigilant in spotting the signs of work-related stress. Relationships. So this one, and I think that I actually had a really beautiful career working in regional theatre and had some really positive relationships. But I do think that post-pandemic, this is crumbling a little bit. So having positive working relationships, avoiding conflict and dealing with unacceptable behaviour. So again, just having good, healthy working relationships between line managers, really having a great procedure around bullying and harassment so that people can feel that they're heard and that complaints are dealt with in a structured manner. Again, this kind of blame culture of shifting blame around does not really work. And again, just working on good communication. So poor communication can really deflate a team. Last two, you've got role, understanding the role within the organisation, ensuring no conflicting roles. This one I think is getting a bit sketchy in a post-COVID environment, because of course we're people are acting up and you know, there are roles missing. So that definition of roles, we've got a real problem in this area, I would say. So being overworked and understaffed and acting up into higher roles, they're all things that are happening at the moment, and they're all things that we really need to look at, because it's not okay. And it is causing undue stress to the workers that you do currently have. So there's a danger of you losing them. You know, you want to try and retain the ones that you've got. Workers don't feel valued in the workplace, job roles aren't defined. This is, you know, when we're short staffed, we just start chucking extra stuff in, don't we? But that comes with an effect to other human beings. And again, this is all linked to staff retention, recruitment, and less so I'd say about redundancy at the moment, but certainly within the pandemic it was. And the last one is change. So this one's quite interesting. So if there is any change within your structure, of course, there's huge amounts of change during the pandemic in terms of staff going on furlough, staff being unfurloughed, staff being made redundant. Only you know whether that was done well or badly. You can't turn back the clock in that sense, but you do need to recognise if that was a bad process that your company went through. You might have poor relationships with your workers. as a result of it. But again, communicating change is really, really important. No feedback structure, unsupported management, that's really, really important. So I would say going forward, you should be any kind of structural change or any kind of big change within your organisation, you need to look at the health and welfare aspect of that in terms of risk assessment. So these are the 6 areas that you're going to begin to start risk assessing. And then what I've done in the guidance now is I've actually just given you a 10-step guide of where to begin. Okay. I'm hoping some of this actually just makes sense, yeah, because of course we're all very familiar with risk assessments. So the first one is everyone has to be involved. That's really, really important. And actually the first 3 are very geared towards a holistic approach. So communicate your intentions to all of your staff and get people's opinions. And that is really, really important. Stress and well-being is subjective, so it's important that you take a holistic approach to it. It might be in your head, we'll just get the HR team to risk assess stress. I don't think that's not going to work. It's just not going to work, because how does the HR team know what your stage technicians' stress factors might be in that particular role? I would believe the HR team can probably risk assess their own team dynamic in that sense. We need to have the same approach that we would take to safety risk assessments. Each level has to contribute to it, because a chief electrician who hires a hiring HOD, head of department, also has to do appraisals and line manage people, will have different stress factors to, say, a casual electrician or a charge hand electrician in that sense. So you need to look at each tier, and it needs to be a really holistic approach that everybody needs to contribute towards. And you need to let people know that you're beginning this body of work. I wanted to just highlight a little bit more. By the way, when you go through the guidance note, I don't just put that. There is some further explanation there. I'm just trying to be concise, so there is a little bit of extra further explanation. I just want to dive into point 4, which is what we have got in place already. So you need to have I believe every workplace has got something to offer in this area, but it's really important to take the time to have a little look at what it is and if it's effective. So these are just some examples. Okay, there's probably more. Sickness and absence helpline. Some more higher up organisations and structures might have a helpline as a staff benefit. You might have some policies on diversity and inclusivity, dignity at work, grievance. You might have, I would say most people have a grievance policy. Okay, we have to legally do appraisals, so that's part of that. You might have a staff handbook, you might have an equal pay statement, you might have attendance management policy. This whistleblowing one I'll talk about a bit later, that's new to me. I didn't know much about that one. But what you need to do is you need to take all of these different things and then just have a little think about them. So what I've done is I've highlighted these ones here, and I've said it's not okay to just list them. Yeah, so if you've got sickness and absence, you need to obtain the data for that. Like, that needs to be recorded somewhere. If you have a staff helpline, do people use it? Are you literally chucking money at a staff helpline? How do you know is it any good? Have you phoned that staff helpline lately, and is it any good? I only say that because I'm not a well lady sometimes, and I have to phone numbers, and some of those helplines are not helpful. So who's checked that staff helpline that you're paying for, and is it any good? Yeah. Team meeting minutes, I mean, are they still happening? Do we miss those? Who knows? Performance appraisals, are we just doing them, and is anything happening from them? So again, it's important to dissect the data. That you need data, and you need to dig into whether these things are working. So the other ones that I've popped on here, these ones, I feel it's about signposting. So grievance reporting, dignity at work, someone wrote those. Yeah, when were they written? When were they last reviewed? Is my first thing. Does anybody know about them? Have you literally just chucked them in the staff handbook? A staff member has that on day dot of their job. If I did a straw poll and came into your place of work and said, do you know you've got a dignity at work policy, and do you know where it is? All staff know where it is. So it's just about, like, are these tick box exercises that you went through at some point, and do you need to just have another little look at them? So that's like what we have. But that's, I'm not insulting these things that we have on this list. Yeah, I'm just saying now's the time to have a little look at them again, and just, you know, see if we need to have a little look and update them a little bit. Do we need to do some further signposting? Does anyone know what the whistleblowing policy is? I worked for ABTT for they have a whistleblowing policy. I had no idea about it, so maybe they didn't have it when I was there. But do your staff know that that's a thing that you have? Okay. This one here, I don't want to dwell on this. It's start to draw up your risk assessment. So I have put an example risk assessment in the guidance note for you. I've even uploaded onto the ABTT website a blank one. So if you don't have the time, or you want to just download my blank one and start to fill it in. So I've filled one in the guidance note, given you an example. I've also given you a blank template. I really want you to begin this work. I've done everything I can to help you get on your way to begin this work. Okay. And again, that's just drawing up a standard risk assessment and identify the people who will be affected by each hazard. And we're very comfortable with that. So number 7 is review what you have in place. Is it working? Okay. So this is my little symbol here. Yeah. So sometimes when I go into a workplace, people are like, you know, I'm totally looking after you, or whatever. You're like, I'm not sure that you are. So I'm just going to give you a few examples. Okay. So you might, when I began this work, obviously I talked to lots of different people, and lots of different people said, Mig, I don't need to do this. We've got mental health first aiders on our site. So I would immediately start to say to you, that's great. Fabulous. You've got mental health first aiders. Do you have a system in place to look after your mental health first aiders? Are they supported in their role? Do you have a system in place to record interactions? Now, I'm not suggesting that we breach privacy or GDPR or anything like that, but in the same way that we record near misses and first aid incidences, we should be documenting mental health first aid interactions, even if it's just a standard tick box of my mental health first aider 1 engaged in interacting with 3 people this month, because then you've got data to analyse, and that should be analysed in your health and safety debriefs within your business structure, as you would a slip, trip or a fall. Do your mental health first aiders have check-in meetings to report back and seek support? Or have you literally just sent them on a 3-day course and sent them on their merry way and not spoken to them again until they perhaps need that training updated? So is it a tick box exercise? That's what I'm trying to say. Or have you literally strategically put it into your business, or have you just put a sticking plaster over a problem? What have I put on this one? Yes. So other people said to me, yes, Meg, we've got like a counsellor phone line. That's fine. Like that's not a problem. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Does everyone know about that? So if I came into your workplace and did a straw poll and said, do you know that there's a counselling phone line? Would everybody in your business know that's a thing? Is it signposted? Is it something you just put in your staff handbook and that's it? Do you have statistics on its usage? Are you literally chucking money at something that people aren't using? Might that money be better popped into something else that can help your workers? Okay. Have you got any feedback from people that have used it? Now, you can't force people to give feedback because it's quite confidential, but have you found it? Have you found it to see if the person at the other end is nice? I only say that because I've had a couple of reports of not very nice interactions with these things. So it is like, if you're paying for something, you might just want to have a little look and just check what you're getting is a good quality product. Okay. Whistleblower, we're gonna have a little moment on this whistleblowing policy. Okay, so I don't for those of you that don't know, it's a confidential place that you can go to and divulge information that you might be uncomfortable divulging, about bullying, harassment, or safety, or anything really. I'm aware that this is recorded, but as a technician, to me, when someone explained this to me, I felt like it was like the dobbing hotline to go and dob on your mates type thing. I don't know how popular it would be in a backstage environment, because it does feel a little bit like dobbing on your mate. But again, it's an interesting concept. Do your staff know about it? Do you need to communicate this again and signpost it? Again, how often is it being used? Have you just written this policy and actually your backstage technicians, or your, you know, certainly in the back, I don't believe the backstage community will find that comfortable. But again, is it being used? Is it working? Do you need to have to revisit it? Grievance procedures as well. And like people say, we've got grievance procedures, people can make a grievance or whatever else. I'm like, you know, that's absolutely fine. Do your staff know about it? If I went in and asked people, would they know it? Like if I went in on a spot visit and just said, do you know about this? Do you have statistics? How often do people make a grievance? Is it weird that nobody's made a grievance in 5 years? Do you see what I mean? So it's those little things that you need to have a little look at. Line management structures as well. Like, are your line managers trained? Are they confident to deal with conversations around work-related stress, mental health and well-being? These are all new, very scary topics to feel confident talking about. Do you have a culture in your workplace where people feel happy and safe to talk about these things? I think that's all I've got. By the way, there are many other examples that I've put in the guidance note, but I'm just trying to be concise. Again, we're going to have a little look at point 8 a little bit more, but point 8 is what additional policies do you want to introduce? Point 9 and 10 are agree further actions and agree a time to review your work. That is standard risk assessment stuff that we should be familiar with already. But let's have a little look at number 8, which is, might we want to consider some new things to add to our contribution? So before I push on this slide, it might be that you have enough work already looking at what you currently have, and it's too ambitious for you to look at point 8. Because actually, I would rather you spent more time looking at what you currently have and making it excellent than adding additional stuff that's too much to deal with. Okay, but when you are ready to look at point 8, again, we need to stop ignoring that there isn't a problem in the workplace. Make achievable goals and targets. So don't start writing a massive long list of what you want to do. These things take time, and again, they take time to embed culturally as well. So there really is no point chucking loads of them. You need to pop one thing in, let that bed in culturally, and then maybe pop another thing in as well, because it takes time for us to get used to change. I hated wearing my hard hat on a fit up all of the time, didn't understand why I had to do it because I hadn't done it for years. Now it would be weird to not wear a hard hat on a fit up because it's culturally embedded into the way that we work. Again, no one expects you to tackle all aspects that have been highlighted, and no one expects you to achieve them overnight. These are long-term, these are like, you need part of a strategic plan. Again, you need to commit to review and updating what you currently have first and communicating those policies and procedures before you tackle anything else. And when you're ready, start to pick a few new targets to work on to enhance your commitment to tackling work-related stress. Okay, this is the last slide, and then we'll do some questions. Okay, so Mig's key points to take from this. It's not okay to deny the problems that your company might be facing right now, because I believe, and I don't believe that, I'm not singling anybody out, everybody is having these problems, which is why I've created this guidance note. And it's not okay to say that you don't have them, because we're all having them post-pandemic. These are post-pandemic issues. The HSE have already highlighted them. I believe other industries are also having very similar problems as well. It is okay to feel that you don't know where to start. I get that, this is new. And I do understand how daunting it is to do, but there is lots of support out there, and the ABTT are very happy to support you, and myself as well. We really hope that this guidance note goes somewhere to helping you begin to tackle the work, but what we can't do is allocate the time and perhaps a little budget for you to focus on working on that. That's the commitment that we need from you. And again, you need to allow time and thoughts to develop your plans, to provide more provision to making the working environment for your human beings happy, healthy, and a stress-free one. I am forever advocating that it is time for us to strategically put some budget and some time into the humans that make our profitable entertainment industry. That's front of house, back of house, management, everything. Okay, right. I'm going to stop screen sharing. I'm going to stop recording.